This week, we welcome our first guest to the show, designer Ginny Macdonald. She may have been speaking with us live from her utility closet.
And Ginny shares with us how she developed her new collection with Lulu and Georgia, the power of collaboration over competition, and letting our crazy show.
We even dive into how she handles delegation and creates a work-life balance with her business.
And don't miss our controversial game of Kiss, Marry, Kill, the Greenery Edition. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Rebecca of Studio Plum.
And I'm Shaun of Renstead Interiors. We're interior designers
Turned internet friends.
turned real life friends.
Welcome to the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
We're not that hot.
Or that young.
Every week, we'll be spilling the tea on how a new generation of interior designers can run their businesses.
Welcome to the club.
Our guest today is Ginny Macdonald. Many of you have been following Ginny since she was the design director with Emily Henderson. In 2017, Ginny made the exciting transition to start her own company, Ginny Macdonald Design. Ginny's own home and her portfolio of client work is an inspiring blend of her English heritage and California roots. Welcome, Ginny.
Hi.
Welcome,
thank you for
Ginny.
having me. Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
So the last time that we saw you was
Oh, yeah.
January, Vegas Market, 2020, a very different world. And our listeners probably don't know how that all came about, but Ginny, I have followed your work for a long time on Instagram, like I'm sure many of our listeners have. And when I was shooting for my guest house project, you were messaging with me on Instagram, your excitement about it. And I think you had been seeing it kind of progress as it was being built. And you shared an editor's contact information with me, which is really lovely and something I so much appreciated because that was my first project to have anything published with. And I think that says a lot about you, that you were so happy to share a resource that, you know, it wasn't about keeping that contact to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I feel like the industry in LA, I have found personally, is very supportive of other people and other designers. I have a couple different groups of designers I'm involved in, and we share a lot of information. And I think, it's important. Why keep it to yourself? Because is that age-old saying of, what is it, community over competition?
Totally.
And I think that is, I want other people to be successful, and I really wanted you to get a feature on that project, like, because it's so beautiful and you deserved it. You worked hard on it, and as a designer, I know how much work you will have put into that, and heart and soul, and that needed to be shared with everybody. So
and tears.
But
Yeah.
and it paid off. It got a feature, and that was amazing. And also, it's not for you, and also like the photographer as well. It's also like all encompassing, like everybody involved gets a got that featured.
Yeah, it's a boost. It's definitely a boost for each other. And it's not like me getting the feature meant another designer didn't get one. There's like quite literally an abundance of opportunity for everyone. And it's not that there's clients for everyone. I do like hearing that philosophy from a lot of designers is there's projects enough for all of us.
Yeah. And that's true. And especially because we're all in different areas in California, LA.
Greater LA.
Yeah, and there is all the clients are different. We're not all gonna have the same people come to us, because we all have different styles and different tastes. So no, I'm glad it worked out. I was like so happy when you got that feature.
Yeah. And then months later, Rebecca and I are waiting for a
Oh my
cab.
God.
We were in the cab.
Yeah, we were like getting in the door,
about to pull out.
Yeah, we were like getting in the door, and Ginny's like, Shaun, and I'm like, oh hey, like, and we had never seen each other in person before, because LA is like that, where even if you communicate with people constantly, you've never seen them in person, because 17 miles might as well be 4 hours. So it's a totally different state of being. And then you were like, I'm late. Can I like bum a ride with you guys? Because you had like a panel or something you were going to be part of. And so we just like crammed into our taxi and got there.
Perfect.
It was so funny because I think I'd been waiting there for about half an hour, and I was just watching the clock, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late for this thing. And I know how long it takes to get from the hotel to the center, and I was just like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And I was just like, I'd ordered an Uber, and you could see the Uber was just like taking so long. And then I was just like, I'm just gonna jump in a cab with some random people. And then I was like, wait, I know him.
I know that random person.
I know that rando.
Yeah, but I think I was also like a little hungover too that morning, and I not had any coffee. And I was like,
that was like second day. We had all indulged the night before.
So yeah, and I was like, oh God, I've never met these people before. They're gonna think I'm crazy because I'm like literally sweating in the car. I'm like, oh my God, get me out of here.
No,
not at all.
Perfect.
By the way, we're all crazy. Just some of us let it show more than others. So.
It makes it more fun if
That's true.
If you show you're crazy right away, then
that's true. Then you know what you're getting, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, no, that was fun. And then I think we got to hang out later on in the day, going around a few showrooms.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so fun about Vegas is you get to do, you know, not that we're talking about Vegas right now, but I love that is another place that you can meet up with other designers and creatives.
And that's the first time we had met. So we met there at the airport. And
that's so funny. When I listened to your first episode, you know, just getting your backstories, that was so interesting. And I, you know, just as an onlooker, I thought you guys had known each other for a lot longer. I mean, I know obviously you'd followed each other and you've had a digital relationship, but you know, digital virtual, you know, but the fact you'd only met in person in January too was kind of interesting.
He was my sister in a past life.
Had to be there. And I or
really my boss. I'm not sure.
No, well,
you were definitely the big sister in the past.
Yeah, that's true. I do feel like good people are good people are attracted to other good people, and that people that we are meant to have in our lives or around our lives find a way to gravitate to one another and find a way to connect to another. And I think that that's just like some of this is part of that, of like one day the universe provides those connections and those relationships.
But you have to be open to it. I mean, that's just like you jumping in the cab was just kind of being like, screw it. I'm just
I don't care if people think it's weird. Like
but that was like, it's so funny though, because that's such a happy accident.
Yeah.
You know, and
those
the fact
that,
you know,
stories.
You know, like now and you know, I knew immediately after just that cab ride, I was like, oh, these are my people, you know. And so and here we are in quarantine.
Oh man, I know. Rebecca and I are desperate to start planning things out of quarantine because we would like to, of course, like see each other again, and we're trying to like figure out how do we responsibly do that when it makes sense. And so it is different, her being in Sacramento and me being in Los Angeles, but I know that it will come. We will find a way, and I think it's just a matter of time. Exactly.
But I guess what's sort of special about it is that you would probably have never done the podcast. I mean, I'm don't quote me, but maybe you wouldn't have done.
We might not have had the time to focus on getting it launched. I think that's true.
Yeah, because I think
it was born right as it was starting to quarantine.
Right. Yeah.
Are you experiencing a burnout of this like remote lifestyle? We talked about this in our previous episode about it being tough to navigate and that it's starting to wear a little bit.
Yeah, I think the run up to the launch, I was really busy and my head was really deep in kind of getting things prepped out for that. And after that happened, it was almost this like, there was a relief, but there was also a I don't know what the word is, just like low, I guess low energy is the
Mm-hmm.
thing, and just feeling a little bit more isolated, I guess.
Mm.
And not in a bad way. I'm trying to remain very positive throughout this whole thing, and otherwise, if you don't have some positive energy about it, things are going to not be great for you. That's my personal thing. I'm always thinking, if you've got a positive attitude, positive things will come.
Totally.
But there have been days where I'm like, I have no creative juice in me today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's not been too bad. I think, it has kind of made me sort of take stock of what's happening in my business, try to think about how I want things to proceed, and I don't know what's to come once things regain normalcy, if that's going to happen. But I think I'm trying to just trying to stay motivated, but I think when you have those days, you just got to let yourself just have a down day.
Totally. You have to just write it out.
Yeah.
It's like, forgive yourself for having that cruddy day
Mm-hmm.
and just keep going.
Yeah.
And I think the feeling maybe you were having post-launch was just depletion, and
Right.
Oh yeah.
that's a lot of just intense creative energy, intense just working energy, and
And lots of obligations, I'm sure, all at one time. Yeah.
and probably
exactly.
nerves. That's just a lot.
No,
emotionally deal
it
with.
It was intense,
even
and
if
it was
it's positive.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is like a good intensity, but just that it's almost like it's funny. My husband was like, it's probably how somebody feels like when they've just finished a movie or something, and then they're offset, and they're like, oh wait, that's it. What do we do next? And
I mean, it's like your wedding day if you were having a big wedding, right? I mean, you're gearing up for it for so long, and then oh my god,
it's done.
Tired. It was a great day, but I am tired.
Yeah.
I think do you experience that after big projects, that same sort of feeling, not necessarily with your launch, but just when you finish a really big job with a client, do you still feel that same sense of relief, but depletion, and a need for a period of reset?
I think it depends on the client. But if they've been an amazing client, yes, because you're in a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, totally.
They almost become an extension of your family, because you're in such a close personal relationship with them. And especially if I tend to work with a lot of the same contractors, and I know that I'm going to see them again, but it's not that often that I'm going to see the clients again. Some clients I've remained friends with and still good. I had one text me today, and so that's great. The good thing about having clients is sometimes you do make friends with them, but then others you're just not constantly seeing them anymore, and that's I guess that's kind of sad, because
well, you go from a relationship of just walking in their house at a time of the day, you just walk in the front door,
filter off,
and then you're like, oh wait, I need to knock now. I guess this isn't appropriate
this
anymore.
Is their house now.
I can't just cruise into their back door. Hey, I'm here.
That's true. That's so true.
You have a really intimate in that way, access to their life, and then there's a appropriate barrier gets back up.
So true. But there is definitely a sadness to it, but usually you're just on to the next thing anyway, so there's not too much time to dwell on it. But especially if it's a project that you've really loved, the good thing is, if you can, if the client allows it, then you get to go back and photograph the space, that's always another good reason to go back.
That kind of helps put the bow on it, to have that tie it, good closure of you end on a really high note with stuff like that. And I think that can you share for our listeners, just we didn't get too much into it, but the path to where you are today with Ginny Macdonald Design and the projects you're working on?
So if we're going right to the very beginning, I started working for an architecture firm in England, in my hometown, when I was 16. Our schooling is slightly different in the UK, so you leave high school at 16. So then you go on to other educational things. But I had a friend at school, and her dad owned an architecture firm, and I'd already kind of had interest in it. So I was like, oh, I'll just go try this. I was going to go to college, not university, and not college as you guys would call it here. It's like it's like an in between. I was going to go and do graphic design.
Got it.
And I was like, oh, that course will be there forever. I could always do that another time. So I went to work in this architecture firm and worked for them for 7 years. It's a long time. And then throughout that, I started going to university to study interior design. So I've been in design for a long time. I think it's like 20 years. Oh my God, it's 20 years. I'm 36
That's
now.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
So, and so a lot of the work I was doing, once I'd finished university, I was living in Manchester and went to, worked for a couple different interior design companies in Manchester, and they were mainly retail design. So trying to think, like, we worked with Adidas, we worked with who else, like smaller food restaurant chains in the UK. And then that was actually in 2008 when the recession hit. So I ended up losing my job from one company. They basically just like kind of wiped all their staff because they lost a lot of work, and then, which was the worst time ever. So so I'm always grateful for the amount of work that we have, and wake up every day just being able to do this job with such gratitude. But I ended up going to London after that and worked for another retail design company in London for a couple of years, and then moved over here. And for a few months I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't legally allowed to work because I was a 90-day fiance. And so I had to wait about 6 months before I got my card through. And in that time, I found Emily Henderson's blog, and she was looking for an intern. And although I was overqualified for that position, and she knew that, and I knew that, I just had to just do something. I was going stir crazy by not working. And so,
and that's still 2008.
This was in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, 2013. So I basically was living. 2008 was when I was in Manchester.
Yeah.
And I moved down to London for a couple of years, and then moved from London in 2013. So
crazy.
So I moved. Yeah, when I moved here, I basically had to kind of restart my career again. Just because the commercial design here is very different from back in London. There's a lot of interior design companies that focus on like big commercial, and it's a lot of retail. I mean, that also might have changed now, just with social media and like how retail has changed. But there's a lot of retail companies and other like bar and restaurant design companies. So those are the kind of projects I was used to working on. And obviously all the laws are different here. And when I kind of tried to find a similar company, I just couldn't find any. So that's why I ended up transitioning into residential. But yeah, I was with Emily for 4 or 5 years. Forget exactly how many now. And then in 2017 is when I moved from M to do my own thing. And then that's 2.5 years ago ish.
It goes by so fast.
So fast. But it just feels longer. It feels like it's a lot longer
every day.
Yeah.
Was that always like a goal of yours to work on your own and have your own business?
No, never. And it's so interesting because, I mean, and again, like I'm going off my own personal experience, but when I was still living in the UK, that's not something that people did. Like people didn't just decide, oh, I'm going to run my own business. And I don't know if also, again, just my experience, because I've only been in LA, if it's a very LA thing to do, or if it's like a very American thing to do, you know, I don't really have that.
Like a different frame of reference for
Yes,
it.
yeah. And so I'm almost just like, and especially now because social media is so different, like, are people in England, you know, going out and doing their own businesses now? I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely not on the radar because I'd worked for somebody else for so long, and I just was like, oh, this is the norm. You get up, you go to your job, you come home, you do a great job, you work hard, and then you come home. And then, yeah, and I just had never ever, you know, some people I think are just born to be their own boss and they have their own company, but I guess that was not really in my kind of.
I definitely think it's an American like cultural, I don't know, I think it's part of our culture, like maybe it's more West Coast too. I only have lived on the West Coast too, but like we have that pioneering spirit, I think, is built into our DNA, and it's handed down that everyone who, like, I'm third, fourth generation West Coast, Southern California, and everyone came from somewhere else originally, and we like started our own thing. And
Yeah.
But there is something to be said, like there's something reassuring about going to work for another established company where things are set up to a certain scale and they've got sort of enough resources and infrastructure built in. There is something about that that's reassuring.
Oh God.
But it comes with its fair number of
you can just do what you like and what you're good at.
You're 8 to 5, you go home, there's no emergencies on the weekends, and you come in
billing.
Right. Yeah, all of that. I mean, I think also the best thing about working for dependent, you know, a small company or even a bigger company. I never worked for a company that had more than 40 people at one time. So I never worked for like a big corporate company. So even though it was, you know, more of a professional environment, it was never sort of, you weren't just a number on a page, you know, you were still a person within that company. But just the fact that there's so much learning that you can do and you can absorb so much, like having worked for several different companies, like they all do things very differently. And so I think, you know, with the architects firm that I first worked for, some of their procedures and processes were so tight. You know, I think even at some point, you know, we were all worked on PCs. Oh my God, I couldn't even remember what that was called. That's not what's not a Mac? Is it a PC?
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, yeah.
So but like when we weren't even allowed to create a new file in the system, there was that like strict on how their file systems were set up. And as much as that was kind of like super anal, like I actually have taken that on board, and our filing structure is very like tight. So I think having, you know, worked for a lot of different people, you know, from like a very corporate environment, not I don't want to say, I mean, that I guess you could say that was kind of corporate, but compared
to larger
working,
business,
exactly,
like, yeah.
And then I'm working for like Emily, who's from a styling background, like picking up those skills. So it's been like, you know, I've had a lot of different experience, and I think that's what's been really beneficial to working for other people.
And I think it really comes through in your work. Like I can see like the history that you bring from England and your style and the layers that you're able to add like with the styling. Like I've always really loved that in your work, but also you bring in this really modern element that I don't know, it feels really full but still simple. Like it, I think all those things you picked up, you can see it in your portfolio, and that's I think what people don't realize when they feel like their journey is too bumpy, or you're going like, why am I working for this stupid job? But looking back, like I think you can always, if you do it well, pinpoint what you actually could learn and keep in your back pocket and pull out later.
Totally. And I think every experience you can pick something. And like, you know, even like when you were saying on your first podcast, like Shaun, you're sure, you know, your banking background, like you must have picked up so much wealth of information from that, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you almost like, and you probably also don't realize like what you're utilizing from those other jobs.
Some stuff comes up and then I'm like, oh wait, I actually know something about this. Or I've had clients recently, because of everything that's going on, they know my background before I left the bank, and I was working in like a wealth management group with compliance, and they did a lot of estate planning and so I am by no means an expert, but clients are like, I don't know what to do. Like, I just, like, some of them don't even realize that they didn't set up like who's going to be the guardian for their children if something should happen to them.
Wow.
And then they're like, what should we do? And I'm like, I don't do this, right? Like, but they know that I've worked in that. And so they're hoping that it puts a friendlier face on it.
Yes.
Instead of feeling foolish to ask an advisor or someone that they don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I don't know, I feel like we get, like you said, we get so pulled in with our clients that we're in their inner circle at some point, and they remove kind of this sense of pretense. And then I find myself, questions come up and I'm like, oh, I actually know something about that I hadn't thought about for years or needed to do for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's valuable about even like tying it back to design, is these influences that we've had in our lives, in our travels and all of that, it still comes back and informs the way that we work with clients and the way that we create their designs. And I can see that in what you're doing, is that you've got a really firm foundation in your technical skills and your abilities in space planning, which is a huge part of commercial design, especially, and professional architecture firms, like larger, I shouldn't say professional, just larger.
Yes.
That larger in scale, is that sort of programming and schematics and all of those are such a huge element of the foundation of what they do. And you bring that into this kind of approachable scale in residential.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of my jobs at one of the firms I worked for was literally space planning in retail, and just knowing like, okay, so you have this fixture and it houses this many units of product, we have to get X amount into this building, like, and then you have to have like this space in as a walkway in between the fixtures. Like, how can we fit all our units in but also make it look aesthetically interesting? So, and it's almost like mathematic in a way, and I am terrible at math, so I don't know.
It's a Tetris game.
Like, but I kind of love that as well. It's like, in some respects, weirdly, you can apply that to styling, even though obviously there is more like fluidity in, styling out a bookshelf, and you, in order to make it feel and look interesting, you have to kind of loosen a little bit, but there is that kind of Tetris of styling too, to make it look good. Don't put two picture frames on top of each other on a shelf. Like, don't have one on one shelf above each other. And
right. There's formulas, and then there's like, okay, we start from that sort of general principle, and then we go, but that doesn't feel, which is where it starts to get like very woo-woo designer that clients don't always understand. Is you're like, that doesn't look right, and they're like, what do you mean it looks fine? And you're like, no, it's aesthetically, it creates this problem with our eye, and our brain is thinking about it, and they might not ever really consciously notice it, but they'll always be able to sense something isn't quite right, or it's a little off, and that's
or it's
so
better after you move that extra brown thing.
That's the mystery that we have in our world, and clients don't get, which is why we're part of that.
It's so like meditative though. Once you can, if you can, like, I saw you just did something in your own home, Ginny, and like, if you can clear out the time and space to just like empty out a bookshelf, make a pile of stuff behind you, like, it's, I don't know, you get in that flow with it. I think it's so fun.
I just started doing that. I mean, again, and somebody asked me the other day, am I always redecorating our house? And I'm not, because I just don't have the time. It is a rental, so I'm not going to put too much money into putting, redoing a kitchen or redoing a bathroom. So, I just, because of being at home, I was like looking more at the shelves, and I was like, oh, you could do with some work here. Like, they were just like, and you just like throw in a book there and throw other stuff on that. And I'm like, oh, it looks kind of garbage.
Landing pad for stuff in your house.
So I was like, make some time for it. So I did. We have a lot of little built-in like nooks in our house, so the last few weeks I've been like playing around and updating them, so it's kind of fun to do that and give it a refresh.
Yeah, with things you already have. I think that's
yeah,
really
exactly
fun.
On top of the work that you just did in your house, you also had shared a little bit online about your work from home situation. And I know you're working from home, but also, do you have a team or other people working with you who are also working remotely right now?
So I have, there's two girls who've been working for me for the last year and a half. And as soon as the pandemic kind of happened, one of them, her family are in Taiwan, so she went back to shelter with them. And so there's a 15-hour time difference. It became a little too much from a logistical standpoint because she was starting her day, whereas I was trying to end my day. And so the communication was just it wasn't aligning, and it was becoming a little bit too stressful for me. So I said, just let's regroup when you get back to LA, which, I mean, God knows when that is. And then my other assistant, she was only 2 days a week, and she works for another, they both actually are only part-time and work for either other designers or retail stores. And my other assistant, she works for a craft house, that design store in LA.
Oh, yeah.
So she works for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're just going to regroup again in a couple, I don't know when, but when things start to kind of calm down. But
I know. I think we all keep saying a couple weeks, but it's a very ambiguous couple weeks. Like, it's the longest couple weeks in history for many of us.
Totally, yeah.
You have a really big role that you're playing. Like, no one as part of your team is driving things solo. They're not taking projects on completely on their own. You're really remaining in front of a lot of your clients.
Yeah, at the minute. And I think part of that is just down to just me being not being able to kind of give things away as much as I would like to. That control thing.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, and I think obviously that made it a lot harder with the quarantine, just being able to try and give more work out, because sometimes it's just actually a little easier and faster to just do it myself rather than explain it to somebody else. So, and I think that's something I need to relook at, because I think I do need to be giving more things away. And it's not that I don't trust people, I am very trusting, but it's just, I don't know, just that control.
It's control, but you have to commit to the process of training someone. And that is an additional level and layer of work for you. So you have to take it on. But once you do it, having done it in the past, it's kind of amazing, but they have to like own it. CC me, but you're the boss of this.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
There's so much in management that it's like a whole other beast.
Yeah.
It's a whole
and
thing.
And I think, again, like, having worked for so many other people, I have such a newfound respect for all my previous employers, because, whether they're in a bigger company or they're in a smaller company, when you become a designer, you don't sign up to be a manager or a boss or anything like that. You think you're going into design as this like kind of cool design, creative. Well, it's not that at all. It's like 20% is design and like 80% is business. Yes. And I think that's what some people don't necessarily realize when they get into it
or low-level assistant work.
Right.
Schlepping, packing your car full of shit and carrying it somewhere. It's like all three levels.
When like I say, my job when I was 16, I would literally be in, as a junior designer, I would be in this one room. It was the printing room where we would basically print out all our plans. I don't even know what size paper you would call it here, but it was like A1 and it was enormous. I'm like showing you with my hands, but you can't see obviously. But these papers are enormous, and there was a specific way of folding them. The title block had to go on the top, so when the quantity surveyors and the contractors who were bidding for these projects could see everything. And I got my like folding down to a knack, and I would like challenge myself, if you can fold these in like how many minutes, and yeah, you have to start somewhere, and that was like my grafting like start.
But you probably still do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, not as much papers probably, but it's hard to even like pass that stuff off until you have people with you 24 hours or 40 hours a week.
Yeah. But you guys have Shaun, you don't, but
I'm on my own.
Yeah.
I started to get some assistant help, and I started in like February.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. So
COVID.
Yeah, we didn't get like good traction, but they're still like helping me a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There'll be a restart in some of that, for sure. Are there things that like Ginny, are there like steps or things that you're using that help you free up your time? Because a lot of the stuff we hear from other designers is, and yours may be the same way, so feel free to be frank about it, but there's this image of a lot of designers just working like constant hours, all hours of the night, up late, which is probably a little bit of a reality of starting your own business. But do you have some guidance or steps or things that have helped you get some of your life back from your business?
Boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things for me was moving out of my home. So we had our office was in my house basically, and I started on the dining table. Then I kind of kicked my husband out of our home office, and he came into the dining room and worked from there. That didn't work out for him very well. And then eventually I was like, I gotta get an office. And so that helped to create more of a work-life divide. Not that I wasn't bringing work home in the evening, because, as a small business owner, you always do. But
totally,
I think I'm still, still do work a lot. And it's not necessarily just on client projects, but it's, setting things up for social media, or setting things up for my website, or just working on other kind of business development stuff that everybody's not seeing. Whether it's like procedural stuff, or I'm always like on thinking about stuff, but you do have to set boundaries. I think right now it has been easier to set boundaries because things are a little weird and you are just more confined to your house. So like I was saying before, I've started to walk with podcasts in the morning, and that's like my morning routine, and it's been helpful for like me mentally to be able to do that. But I'm still obviously doing, still focusing on client projects, and I have done a couple of safe site visits, not as many as we normally would be doing, but I think just like if it gets to 6-7 o'clock, it's like, okay, now it's time to start working, like, and have some of your own evening, and just really trying to, and I actually do try and switch off on a weekend. And I know that's like kind of crazy, but I do sort of, in my contract, I have it that our office hours are Monday to Friday. And if you want to meet on a weekend, it's by appointment only. And it's like, because otherwise you're going to go crazy. Like your brain just needs, and my brain personally needs to reset. And I try to do that on a weekend, although the lines are a little blurred, more so now.
I mean, Rebecca has her business, her family, her daughter. It's like,
I mean, you're a saint.
Well, my husband still gets to go to work, so yeah. This week I started taking her back to my parents for a few hours, and being home alone in my house again, even for 3 hours,
refreshing.
I needed it. Yeah.
I think you need that time to reinvigorate your mind, to just clear thought processes. Yeah. Like you can't have constant input coming in and still feel like you have the bandwidth for anything else that you need to solve or prioritize or like be creative with. It's like the ideas will never come. Nothing will ever come to fruition from that when there's not enough space for it.
Right. Yeah, there's only so much you can keep in your head, and that's why it's the whole COVID thing, that is just such an added like mental stress. So it's like you almost have to like sometimes switch off from the news or something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think focusing on the things like you were saying that are special about this time,
Yeah.
like you wouldn't probably allow yourself an hour to walk and stroll in your
No.
neighborhood with your podcast normally
Yeah.
during the week when you're in the hustle.
Right.
So like we have some specialness about
Yeah.
it that
Sure.
if you have to embrace it to and remember it. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to
And
remember this is a special time with my daughter too. Like
right.
I'm
Yeah.
not used to being with
She's
her
gonna
that
think this
much.
was great. She's
Yeah.
She
gonna
says
look
it
back
is.
like
Well,
she's
that
gonna
was
love it.
one of my friends. She's in Colorado, and she has 3 kids, and she actually homeschooled all 3 of them. And she talks a lot on her social media, and she gave some tips for like families that are not used to homeschooling their kids. And obviously, I can't speak to this because I don't have kids, but I found it quite insightful. It's just the way that she is looking at this time is how are her kids going to remember that time, and like how can you make that special for them. And I think
Mhm.
we can also apply and not make it like a negative, too much of a negative thing. And I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
that for me, although I don't have kids and I can't apply that to kids, I also took that for myself. Is like, how can we look at this time period, although it's very sad what's going on, and how can we make it into something that is positive, and how can we do things for ourselves that are a silver lining almost. And I think that's why you know I feel like the world is wanting us to just have a little reset and
Mhm.
trying to get grounded again. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are putting out there on like their social. Like a lot of people are cooking at home. A lot of people are like working out and doing all these like really fun like workout like videos and
Good for
people
them.
and
I haven't done one.
I
and then
did
like
one.
I mean, to be fair, I've not gotten to the sourdough thing like everybody else.
Oh yeah.
I've not had time for that, but it'd be
Everyone's
nice,
turning Amish and making bread and like
right?
needlepoint and stuff. Like
Now's the time for that.
I don't know. I'm happy to see some of the, I don't know. I have good memories of when my brother and I had chicken pox at the same time growing up, and I thought that was a blast to stay home with my mom
Right.
for like that week plus time frame. It was uncomfortable and itchy and all of those things that comes along, but I thought that was so cool that I got to stay home with my brother, and like we got to play in our yard and do stuff like that, and then be there with my mom, and I'm sure she hated every moment of it. But I
Yeah.
look positively back on that time, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, let's get into your new collection a little bit.
All right.
So, for those of you who haven't seen, Ginny launched a new collection with Lulu and Georgia. Can you tell us a little bit about that partnership? It's so exciting, and we kind of want to hear how that works for a designer.
Yeah, so that kind of came about, and I do feel very lucky with this collection. I work with Sarah, who is the founder of Lulu and Georgia. I've been working with her since the Emily Henderson days. We designed her nursery, her first
I
nursery,
remember.
years ago, and it was such a fun project. And since then, Sarah bought a house in LA, and we've done little bits of partnerships here and there, like kind of social media trades. And then when Sarah moved into her house, she asked me if I wanted to help out with the design. So we've been working on that for quite a while. And we did her 2 kids' bedrooms, and we've slowly been doing the rest of the house. But we knew that we wanted to do a lot of custom pieces, which is why it's taken too long. Okay, sorry, so continue. So basically we knew we wanted to do some custom pieces, and we started off by doing 2 sofas and a bed. And as soon as we got the samples through for that, we knew that this would be a good thing to kind of do on a bigger scale. I'd already also done a couple of other, some of the custom pieces for clients, and I wanted to add those in. So we decided to, make it a bigger full collection. You can't just like launch with like 3 pieces. So we added in the few pieces I'd done with other clients, and developed a couple of other pieces from what we'd done with Sarah's. We made sectionals out of her sofas and a chair. And yeah, it kind of went from there. I mean, the whole process is probably about just over a year, and that was
Wow.
just, I mean, I think it would have gone a lot faster, but the main portion was we were initially just doing it for Sarah's house, and then after that, once we decided that we were going to do it into a bigger thing, that was probably about like 6 to 8 months
Right.
total, from kind of designing to getting the pieces made.
How much of what's created now that's there, do you feel like is representative of you, your design work, your creativity, and how much do you feel was influenced through Lulu and Georgia?
I mean, I think with I mean, because I brought in a couple pieces of like my own from previous clients, those are definitely very true to me, to my style. And I would even say the other pieces that were developed, you know, specifically for Sarah's house, you know, those, you know, they're simple pieces. They, you know, they're tailored, they're, you know, they're beautiful, and I would say that they're very representative of my my design style. And they didn't, you know, they didn't give me any limitations
Oh, that's
with,
cool.
and I think it's because they knew that I wasn't going to do anything like crazy. You know, I think if like, you know, if I
You're not
had
coming in
like
with Italian modern all of a sudden,
right,
and
exactly, yes. So I think once we got the first pieces, we kind of knew that this would be something that other people would want to be part of. And, you know, we wanted to make it so that people, it wasn't just so specific to any like style. I feel like the pieces are very timeless. They can fit into different styles of home. So because we also offer like a variety of colors. And I think that's where my heritage comes through from the UK, because they're very, very rich colors, and that's sort of representative of a house I used to live in London. So each of the, like in this one house, all the rooms were painted in these like really bold colors, like greens and reds and blues. And you wouldn't think that that would work, and it actually really did. It was like this beautiful Victorian house, and so that's where we kind of formed the color like story from. And we wanted to use like rich velvets and linens because they're like natural materials, and the materials are all from the US, and the pieces are made in LA, which again was another thing that was important for it to be, you know, not shipped in from, you know, out of the country. And what else? It's like, I think, yeah, they were very good at giving me like the creative freedom, to be honest. And you know, I think, you know, there was definitely, we had meetings throughout, and, you know, there was some back and forth on like the different colors, but for the most part, they were very open, which was incredible, really, because I'm sure like with other partnerships, there's a lot of like limitations that you can do.
Like, how about you just put your name on this? We already designed it.
And you hear about that with some like collections where it's like the company bring you like 40 of what they would like to see in it, and then someone like curates it and then slaps a name on it. And so it's good to hear that creatively there's also something you got out of it by being involved with that process.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I also don't think I could ever just, you know, I could ever just have somebody bring me something and be like, oh yeah, great, I love this, let's use it. Like, that's just not, it doesn't feel very genuine to me. So
right, you didn't design it.
Yeah, like I feel like that I mean, if it works for other people, great, I love that. But I think, again, it comes down to the control thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not getting like Ginny Macdonald soap dispensers or something like that.
I'll take one.
I mean, never say never. If I could design something, then yeah,
like a full little line.
yeah.
I'm curious how like the fabrics and all of those selections, are you choosing from kind of existing fabrics and colors?
Yeah, so they are companies that already exist They are like I said, the two are linen, like a cotton velvet and a 100% linen, and we basically, they're wholesale. So we chose from we chose from a lot. We went through a lot of different like I don't know, like swatch books, I guess you would say, to narrow down the options that we ended up going with. And again, like this is part of something that's more on the Lulu and Georgia side. They obviously had to make sure that that worked within their budgets and their parameters of what, you know,
like a cost like per unit
exactly
type of
yes,
thing.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So they had to. That was more a lot of their involvement, was just making sure that they could stay within their like limitations target,
the production stuff, and make it actually happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think that's, you know, launching it this time in the middle of all this craziness was it's been emotionally draining, just because, you know, you're putting yourself out there for one, and as designers, well, we're all, you know, pretty critical of ourselves, and you know, so that was obviously always in the back of my mind. But then, you know, I'm also launching through a pandemic. It could come across as insensitive, right? You know, like, oh, hey, look at this. This is so cool, what I did. But there are so many people that work so hard on this collection. And I think that as a consumer and as a salesperson or as a designer, because we are salespeople, essentially, you know, I have such a newfound respect for what goes into producing materials, to producing pieces of furniture that are consumer based, right? It's the amount of people that were involved in the production of this on their side. Like, it just wouldn't have happened without them. There was like the main people, the photographer, obviously, who did the most incredible like shots and the incredible videos. There was a stylist who helped. Then there's like their social media and digital coordinator, who kind of was like my second person through this. She was incredible. Then there's the buyer on their team. There's also a social media person who does like actually puts out their social content. And then there's all these other people that are involved that we don't even see and don't even, you know, who's loading it to their website, who's, you know, creating all the pages, creating all the information, creating all the copy. There's so many people involved. And so I had to make sure, you know, because it was like a conflicting feeling for me of like launching right now, it would be dishonorable to them if I wasn't more excited about it and kind of, you know, I mean, obviously I was excited about it, but it's just like, you know what I mean?
We get you.
I mean? Like,
I mean, you're sensitive to all sides of it, and
you don't want to sound be tone deaf during it, and it didn't come across, or I don't feel like it so far has felt that way.
Right.
But we've talked about this before too. I think that it's also not up to us to decide if someone wants to buy a new sofa right now or not.
Totally.
And a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people, like, you're selling these pieces because people want them in their homes, and the time is right for some people.
Yeah, totally. And you're never going to be everybody's. No. And even without a launch, as a person on social media, you're not for everybody. So, you know, I think.
And this isn't like a short-term thing.
No.
Like this is a line that's going to stick with them for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So if someone's not ready right now, that's fine. Totally. They'll still be there when they are.
For sure. And like, you know, I think because the images are so beautiful and you know, their team works so hard, even if it just gives somebody a little joy when they're reading a blog or reading the website and having their coffee in the morning, that's all that matters, really, you know. So
will you be adding to the collection down the road?
I don't know. I mean, I would definitely be totally into that. You know, like I said, I had a really good relationship with everybody, and you know, I would definitely be so into that. And whether it stays with the upholstery range, or if that gets expanded into case goods instead, I would be open to that too. So yeah,
that'd be
awesome. I feel like it's not it won't be the last collection that I launch, but again, just knowing how much goes into, that's why I've kind of put off doing a launch, doing a collection, because it's just so much work and effort goes into it. But I would love to continue doing collections with people. But I
those
actually
beds need some nightstands.
And something like that would be relatively hard to imagine achieving for a lot of designers if they didn't have that backing of a larger company like Lulu and Georgia, who is already creating and putting out furniture. It's not like you had to start from the ground up of finding a production facility and bringing on a workroom. And I mean, they already have access and resources to help. I mean, they've got a lot of people working for this. And I think that's important to note, that there are, like you said, so many people involved in getting it launched, but also all the jobs and all those families who are being supported by the production and actually getting those pieces out there. And they're all jobs, you know, here in the States, you know, here in LA specifically, but there's something to be said that's valuable for some potential customers and clients, that they want to hear that story. And they're sensitive to that.
That's why the shoot itself was 2 days, and that the crew that was involved in that, and that was so interesting because that was literally before we went on lockdown. It was we were literally like all on our phones, just like looking at like, oh my god, what's, you know, it was just the news reports that were coming in were just like, even like just horrendous. And so we did the 2-day shoot, and then we were meant to do a shoot at my house the following week, but then we went into lockdown, so we never ended up doing that. And then that's why we ended up cancelling the launch party, and I think a couple other things got pushed. But yeah, it was crazy. The timing was so funny, just very bizarre.
Did you get to art direct the shoot? Like, how much like styling and hands-on were you involved?
I was pretty hands-on. Like Kelly, they have an internal stylist she's incredible. She pulled the looks. She basically pulled some of the looks together for me and presented me with a deck of you know, mood boards, and I would kind of say, yeah, let's do this, or no, let's swap this out for something else. And then you know, on the 2 days of the shoot, I was, you know, I was involved in there. I was in my sweatpants, climbing up bookshelves and things.
What was it? It was a location, I'm assuming. It looks like a real build.
It was in it's a house up in Los Feliz. Beautiful house. Oh my god, the bones of the house are gorgeous.
All that millwork.
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah. So they did, they found it. And again, like, even just the coordination time it took to find that property and like secure secure the dates, secure the like the moving team. Oh, and to mention, the day that we loaded out, it was that time when we had all that torrential rain.
Oh
like
gosh.
It was like, I'd gone in the morning in slides, open-toed slides, and had to borrow a pair of Wellingtons from somebody to go and load my car. The house is on a slight incline, and like the water was literally gushing down the street.
Oh my god.
Just like a river.
It was, I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, we were all just like drowned rats. It was just, I mean, everyone was in such good spirit though. I think everyone was like also like, oh my god, we're about to hit by this crazy pandemic, but everyone's in such good spirits, and it was just, you kind of just had to laugh. But I did feel bad for the moving guys who are moving these like 8-foot like sofas out of the house in the rain.
Yeah.
And clearing out the existing furniture, I'm assuming.
Yes. Well,
actually
no, the house, because the house is so big, they only have a couple of rooms occupied, so I think they're still working on some of the design for that house.
Oh.
Well, that's a nice problem to have.
Right? I mean,
and get a shoot out of it to help pay some bills for it.
Yeah,
Not bad.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Can we ask you, Ginny, a little bit about how does the collection with Lulu and Georgia benefit you, or like you/your business as Ginny Macdonald Design? Is it a licensing agreement? Is there profit share? Is it neither? How does it work?
So profit share basically, and that is a percentage of the profits, and that's kind of split up every quarter. And I don't know, I'm not sure how other companies do it, but that worked really well for us. And you know, I think I will be using these pieces in future projects for sure. So
yeah.
I think hopefully clients will want them.
I
And
think
so
they're beautiful
yeah.
pieces.
So that is also because obviously they'll get a discount rate for those. That's obviously another thing that will benefit, just being able to get the pieces out there.
Right.
That
And it
makes
like comes full
sense.
circle where if you can shoot them in a project, then you're selling
Yeah.
more and
yeah
part of the team in that way.
But it's also like, I do want to be able to do custom pieces in clients' homes, and not everybody can afford to get a custom sofa because they are expensive. And this is kind of a nice mid ground to have something that is designed by me. And because we have lots of different fabrics, it can be tailored to different projects. So they are essentially getting a custom piece, but just a fraction of the cost.
That's a huge takeaway from that. And it's good, behooves you to want people to, or to get pieces that you really believe in front of a client. I mean, I think that's part of the buy-in from clients when we recommend pieces is your confidence behind recommending them speaks volumes to them, and they can trust the process a little bit more. It's like sells itself if you're like, look, I'm making this available to so many other people already in like a really wide platform.
And this is what I would be looking for anyway, because this is my aesthetic and silhouettes that I'm drawn to. So here you go.
Totally.
I think your work helps with that because you tell us, but feel like your work would be what you would want clients to gravitate towards. And so that makes it even easier to use pieces that you feel comfortable with that are already within your aesthetic.
Totally. And I think, the fact that I know the pieces well, and I know what how they feel, how like comfortable they are, that's, you guys know it's hard sometimes to sell a client on a piece that they haven't been able to see in person. And, I haven't gotten to this point, but it could be, I could probably take customers to the factory and have them sit on the pieces. But it is a hard sell when the client hasn't seen them in person. And that's obviously why Vegas is important, because we get to go and we get to see the pieces in person for ourselves. So when we're presenting these to clients, we can be confident in their quality and their look and their finish. And that's like another thing, because I know how comfortable they are.
Yeah. You've been able to roughhouse with it a little bit and check like how dense they feel, or like if it were like leather. In Vegas, I'm constantly doing the scratch test on leather. I'm like, what is this gonna look like when their dog jumps on it? And I kind of like was rough with stuff because I know what it's like for families with kids, and so that's a huge part of. I've sat in this. I've been in it. It's gonna be firm for the first couple months, and then it'll wear in and you'll be happier.
But I mean, going back to us being salespeople, I mean, it's way easier to sell something when you're actually speaking the truth and standing behind it. I mean, I have custom furniture that I can sell, but I haven't actually sat in that specific style, right? So it's hard.
And one of the other things we did is we use like a synthetic, like not the duck feather, but trillium. We use that because a lot of clients have had allergies. And so, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't prohibiting them, being able to use it, because duck feather, a lot of people are allergic to duck feathers.
And it's vegan
better.
And
it's exactly.
Yeah.
In LA, that's important.
Our LA is showing,
I know, right?
And trillium feels good because it's like
consistent. It does. I actually love it. I think it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
And you don't get poked by the little feather.
It's true.
Yeah, you don't ever have to refill or go back to it as frequently, like with duck, as it starts to kind of crush over time.
And sometimes duck feathers smell.
Oh.
Yes. If you have humidity in your environment, if you have humidity, that's true. Even if they wrap, like double wrap, make sure it's still, it can come out.
Ducky in here.
Yeah, that's true. So we like to do something fun with our guests, and today we want to play. We're making a slightly PG version. It's called Kiss, Marry, Kill. I'm sure
Oh,
you've
yeah.
played another
Yeah.
variation of this game. Today's variation is greenery in
Okay.
homes.
Okay.
So you get to tell us which you would rather kiss, marry, or kill
Okay.
of these three. You have to choose between olive branches,
Hmm.
eucalyptus cuttings, or flowering branches.
Oh, that's hard because they're all good. The one you did the other day with the hydrangeas and the red roses, I was like, oh God. And I was
You
like,
gotta marry one.
you gotta kill those roses.
See?
Yeah.
We weren't off that. We weren't very far
No.
off on that. Yeah.
Okay. God damn, this is hard. Okay, so olive, eucalyptus, or flowering branches.
Uh-huh.
I use eucalyptus a lot. And what I like about it is you can also just leave it and it dries out, and it also dries out really beautifully.
True.
And I also put it in the shower sometimes. You ever done that? We just put like,
Oh, I've seen
Yeah.
people do that. I always
yeah,
forget.
yeah.
The hot water kind of releases the
Yeah,
oils.
it's
And,
crazy.
yeah.
So I would probably, although olive branches are just kind of more beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna marry the eucalyptus. I'm gonna kiss the olive branches, and then I don't want to kill them, the flowering branches, but maybe, because also like eucalyptus are like season, like if they're like they can be like all season, not just like holiday season. At least in
Right.
LA.
Yeah,
I
I feel like
think
we're surrounded by them here. I
yeah.
walk down the street and I've cut them from neighbors' yards. and like shopping centers, and I'm like, these are hanging low, clip, and then
You mean
oops,
you
like,
pruned them for them?
Yeah.
Yes, I prune them. Healthy pruning encourages new growth.
More growth. Yeah, yeah.
So you're killing the flowering branches just by
Well,
default, then.
I mean, I guess. But now I'm like, should I keep? I mean, in an ideal world, I think I would probably do olive as the marry. I don't know why I would kill eucalyptus. I mean, those are all good options. This is a tough one. What would you guys do?
I think I'm gonna marry the eucalyptus because there's the seeded
They're
eucalyptus,
tried and true.
non-seeded.
Like they'll really like support you through thick and thin.
Yeah, and
What you want by your side.
there's various types of eucalyptus
That's
that
true.
work
True.
for
Like
like
silver
all sorts of
dollar.
different things. So
true.
for me, it's like it's an easy. If I didn't know what to pick, I'm always gonna land back at eucalyptus.
Yeah.
I would
This is a
probably.
hard one.
I think I might
I'd
kiss
probably kill the
flowering
branch.
branches. You
Oh.
kill which branch?
I might kill the
Flowers?
flowering branches.
Oh, so we're all on the same page then.
I could find something else that's branch-like if I had to.
I might kiss the flowering branches. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
So you're killing olives?
Yeah, because the branches are a different shape, like a lot different of a shape than the eucalyptus.
Yes.
So you'd have something very vertical with the flowering branches. Eucalyptus can get kind of organic and floppy, where
And this
olive
is hard on
branches can do that
purpose.
too.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard on purpose, though. I totally
That's true.
love the
It is hard on
structure.
purpose.
I love the structure of.
And we don't
and
ever have to do this.
we don't ever have to give up
That's
one
true.
unless
That's
every
true.
flowering branch tree didn't make it. So I think there's something cool about the architecture of it and how you. But let's not pretend that they all come out looking exactly like that. There's like an hour of like futzing with them to make them look perfect and removing some blooms and keeping others. And so
lots of tape.
I don't feel like I do the same thing if I have to mess with olive or eucalyptus. They're just like, you could practically just toss them in and give it a little shake sometimes and they can look great right away.
So true.
Flowering branch, you might have to rubber band them and like spread them and all sorts of crazy stuff. So
very true.
Well, thank you, Ginny. Tell us what's next for Ginny Macdonald Design.
God, what is next? I think just seeing this whole thing, this whole pandemic out of the way, and then I don't know, what am I going to do next?
Do you have like your vision board or what you had imagined this year would have looked like? Are there things
You
on the
just did something
horizon?
really huge, so
Yeah,
maybe
I think that was like,
maybe she gets a break.
You get an out, like a get out of jail free for the rest of the year.
I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? I don't know. I feel like just kind of obviously have ambition things, like long-term things, but I don't know. I feel like just keeping things going, keeping things running, keeping the business running. Who knows what's ahead with the climate? So I think if we can, keep going, and you know what? I want to shoot some projects, and that sounds crazy to say that right now, but I've got like 3 or 4 that are in my back pocket, and we had some planned just before we had to go into lockdown. So as soon as things, we can start to comfortably work again, those are some focus points for sure.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure some
the portfolio.
Of those.
Those are like years in the making to get that far.
Oh, some of these, honestly, it sounds crazy, but I actually finished these in like 2018. It's a long time ago. Sometimes clients, when they're done remodeling, they don't want to do decor. And so these are a couple of projects that they didn't really want to kind of spend any more money, which is understandable because remodeling costs a fortune.
A lot.
So I think I'm just going to shoot what we have, because there's like some good kitchens and some good bathrooms in there. And I'm like, just want them out in the world.
It helps keep your momentum up while we figure out how things shake out in the months ahead. That's something that you've already done that you want to make sure stays out in front of people. And I think that's one of the most consistent pieces of advice that we've been hearing for designers is just keep staying present, stay in front of people, stay available, keep answering questions, because it may not come back right away. Just like those photo shoots, they don't come back around right away, but as people are seeing the work that you've done, it keeps you present in their mind. And that's really that's the best thing we can do.
I also think photo shoots are our way of celebrating projects being complete. And it's like, I think a lot of us like don't celebrate accomplishments or like let them sink in, but photo shoots are just a way that we love seeing the final images, and we can give ourselves a pat on the back, share them with the world, and they're important.
Ginny, why don't you tell our listeners how they can find you?
Okay, so most of really only Instagram. I have Pinterest too, but it's Ginny_Macdonald is MAC. And I also have our website, which is Ginny Macdonald Design.
You got it. And your collection is live on Lulu and Georgia right now.
All available on Lulu and Georgia. Yeah, you can also get that. You can get through to it through my Instagram and through my website if you go to there first. But
so definitely many lovely pieces.
Out. It's so pretty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ginny. This has been amazing to have this time with you.
No, this has been fun.
Thank you for being shut up in the cupboard for
I know. Thanks for hiding out.
I know, I'm sorry.
Like Harry Potter under the stairs.
Oh, noisy.
That's the truth of recording a podcast. You need a quiet space, and a lot of us don't have those right now. So.
No. God, no. Yeah. Well, this is super fun. Thank you so much.
Got it.
Okay, well, we will see you soon.
We'll catch you around.
Alrighty.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for joining this meeting of the Hot Young Designers Club podcast.
If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Check out the show notes there for links to things we talked about today.
We are keeping the conversation going on Instagram, so don't forget to like, comment, and follow at Hot Young Designers Club.
You can find Rebecca on Instagram at Studio Plum.
And you can find Shaun at Renstead Interiors. That's WRENSTED.
I think he's selectively deaf.
Like my husband? Yeah.
Crazy.
So Yeah, when we're trying to tell him to stop licking his paw, he's like, I'm not listening, guys. I am not listening.
I don't know what's
Oh.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.